I can't believe what is happening to Asians, or it's so disgusting, or, oh, you're one of the good ones, or you must be good at math because, if you're AAPI, you have heard these racist remarks based off of these stereotypes. However, we are not a monolith. We are not your model minority. The facts are the AAPI community makes up 6.9% of the percentage of the United States population. We are the fastest growing racial demographic in the United States. We are an incredibly diverse community that offers so much vibrancy and beauty to any community, any culture. Yet for many, we're still treated as if we don't belong. We're treated as not being worthy of being accepted and loved as Americans. And some of you may be asking, what does AAPI mean? What constitutes being AAPI? Before we dive in, I did want to ground us in a few things. Number one, I am not the all-knowing expert when it comes to the community. I do not and cannot speak for everyone, but I just do my best to share from my experiences. Number two, my knowledge and understanding is an amalgamation of building on the foundations that were laid before me. So just to be clear, these are my thoughts based on my experiences. So please feel free to challenge me at all if you disagree, because we are learning and growing together. So why am I here today? Unless you're a denier of reality, we saw the increase in violence and racism towards the AAPI community over the past few years. According to a national report from Stop AAPI Hate, from March 19, 2020 to March 3rd, 2021, they received 6,603 incidents. 6,603. But basic reasoning will tell you that the true number is far higher, given that this only covers incidents that are reported. Data collection and general reporting is a complicated issue among the AAPI community. I'll delve into this later in the presentation when we discuss legislation and solutions for the community. But also in that report from Stop AAPI Hate, the types of discriminations that were documented were verbal harassment, which made up 65.2%, shunning made up 18.1%, physical assaults made up 12.6%, civil rights violations were 10.3%, and online harassment was 7.3%. Now, if you're familiar with the experience and history of AAPI folks in the United States, this is not new. Ever since the first Asian American immigrants arrived on the shores of this country, discrimination and racism has been a reality that none of us have escaped. But in order to have a raw and honest conversation, we have to lay the foundations through some definitions. AAPI stands for Asian American Pacific Islander, which came about in the 1980s when the federal government tried to be inclusive. The key word here being tried. Although there has also been long discourse on whether the term is actually helpful or harmful because of how many members of the community feel marginalized and erased. And to be honest, this was a reality and a perspective that I wasn't aware of growing up. As a Korean American, I experienced a significant amount of marginalization, racism, and bullying simply for being East Asian. But as I've grown older and began learning about the varying experiences within the community, that there is a lot of inter-community pain due to classism and colorism, but also, to be totally frank, there is a lot of dismissal of the South Asian, Pacific Islander members of the Asian American community by East Asians, let alone the rest of the country. However, when you look at the coining of the term Asian American, it was also one that was rooted in building solidarity by the community. The term was inspired by the Third World Liberation and Black Liberation movements. Two UC Berkeley students, Emma G. and Yuji Ichioka, are responsible for coining the term. It has since become part of the mainstream consciousness. However, it's also really complicated. While race and racism is not solely bound to the United States, the understanding of race and racism varies greatly within the Asian American community. Given that we're still very much an immigrant community, not all members of the community identify as Asian American, let alone fully know the context of what the term means and how it came to be. So while those outside of the community see us as Asian and Asian American, many members of the community still primarily identify by their ethnic background. Now, this further complicates the conversation in efforts to build solidarity, as well as a number of other reasons such as language barriers, geopolitics, and again, back to classism and colorism, because this is so critical. These are critical, but also among a myriad of other issues that cause divisions within the AAPI community. This all plays into the generational challenges as well, with first-generation immigrant parents and elders having a difficult time understanding the unique challenges that second and third generations have to endure, while the younger generations have a difficult time understanding and also misunderstanding the older generations. While this is a generalization, there is a misconception between generations that each side doesn't understand oppression, when in reality we do. It's just from different perspectives. Anti-Asian hate doesn't just come in the form of someone spewing xenophobic, Islamophobic, and xenophobic garbage. Anti-Asian hate isn't just a few isolated incidents of violence. Anti-Asian hate is deeply ingrained into the systems and culture of this country ever since the first Asian American immigrant stepped foot onto the shores of the United States. So to fully understand the roots of anti-Asian hate, one has to learn and focus on three pillars: the yellow peril, the perpetual foreigner narrative, and the model minority myth. While anti-Asian hate is not new, many of us are still processing, mourning, and in pain from the rise in violence towards our community. We have seen our elders be attacked and murdered just for being Asian. We have been scapegoated for a virus that we too have suffered from. We have been used as a wedge against other communities of color to justify their oppression. But we are not a virus. We are not invisible. And we are for damn sure not your model minority. Thank you.